Hi, welcome to Yellow's Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today, my very, very special guest is Mr. Ryan Pitts, who's running for Waxahachie ISD. How are you doing, sir?
Good, DD. How are you doing today? Hope you
Um,
stayed dry.
I did stay dry. Thank you for coming on the show again. During his previous run, he did come on the show, and I appreciate people wanting to be transparent. And I lead the show off and thank you. I want to thank you, and I've told every candidate this cycle. Thank you for wanting to serve your community. It is not easy to put your name in the hat and go through the gauntlet that is Ellis County politics. So wanting to serve is noble, and thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for doing this and keeping Ellis County informed politics and keeping everything transparent. It's very important, and appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you, my friend. So, what inspired this run?
Well, so I ran 2 years ago for WISD, and 2 years ago I kind of shared my vision of what I wanted WISD and kind of what I felt that I could add to the board. Um, and this year with there being vacant spots, 2 vacant spots, it really inspired me to run. So to help WISD keep moving forward. I mean, it's a very critical time in the district. We just passed the record bond last year, and all the construction's underway. And there's a lot of things to be done, and a lot of oversight that needs to be done to ensure that what the voters pass is what gets implemented and done, and that it's done the right way, on time, but more importantly on budget. And so that was part. I also have 2 young kids. My oldest daughter is 5, and she'll be entering elementary school in the fall. She'll attend Felty Elementary, and so I grew up here in Waxahachie, 4th-generation resident, and the school's the lifeblood of our community. And if we don't have good schools, that's a reflection on our community. And so, I work here, I live here, raise my family here, and I'm dedicated to making sure that not only is Waxahachie a great place to live, but that we're able to educate our kids in the best way that we can.
That is definitely a noble endeavor. Definitely a noble. No, it's a noble endeavor, man, to come and serve. Like being from here, and then keeping your money here, keeping your work here, and then still wanting to serve. That's big. So, what qualities, what qualifications would you bring to this board? What would you bring to the board if you were elected?
So if I were elected, I have a unique kind of vision and perspective of the community. I'm highly involved in the community. I serve on several boards in the community and have been involved since 2014, since I came back, started working here full time after college and law school. And so I jumped right in when I got back to town and started serving on various boards. And so I've gotten a good understanding of various aspects of the community, and kind of have a good heartbeat of what's going on in the community. I grew up, I went to law school, have a love for the legislature, and so I've educated myself quite a bit on the process down in Austin and have great relationships with people down in Austin. And I feel like that's one thing that our school board needs is everything that gets passed down to the school boards comes from Austin through our legislature. And so I think it's important to have people on our school board to understand the way that process works, the way school funding works. And so I think kind of my unique education and knowledge will bring good aspect to the board and be able to govern with transparency and fiscally responsible, and getting it done.
So when if you were elected, Mr. Harrison can expect knocks at his door.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, but friendly knocks, and I think that's there's a right way to approach the situations, and I think it's no secret that funding, our public education funding is in
Yeah,
crisis right now.
we're gonna cover that because there's a lot of schools that are going through some major issues, including here in Ellis County. But
Correct.
I wanted to ask you, um, how what is the proper role of the school board in the lives of the parents, the teachers, the staff, and the people of Waxahachie?
So a school board member, their main job is to hire the superintendent, and then their main job is to oversee the budget, um, you know, and then empower their administration and the superintendent to oversee curriculum and to do those various things. And so I think it's important. And then on top of that is to advocate down in Austin for what our public schools need. And so I think it's important that you have a school board member that understands their role in what they do. They don't get involved in the day to day. They're not, they're not supposed to. They're supposed to trust the administration in that. And yes, there's personnel issues and stuff like that that the board has final say on. But most of the time, they're getting that recommendation from a committee that is, said recommended a principal for hire. The board just rubber stamps that. They're trusting that the administration is doing their job. And so, I think having a school board member that understands the role, but also understands what they can do. And what they can do is stand up for public education in our community and make sure that the community is, knows how their tax dollars are being spent, and, stand up for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that, from teachers to budgets to everything, there's a lot. And how important is accountability and transparency?
It's the most important thing, in my opinion. If you're elected in any position, you're elected by the people, and you go sit in that seat for the people, and you're their eyes or ears, and you're their voice. And it's very important that the taxpayers and the voters know exactly what's happening for the position that they elected you for. And that goes for all elected positions. But, school board, we're dealing with our most precious asset in children. And,
Amen.
And so, there's high emotions when it comes to, our schools and our kids. And so, making sure that you're able to handle all that and to, be accountable and be transparent to the public and to the board.
How important is it to, if you were elected, to foster good relationship with the rest of the board members?
I think it's very important. I think, you've got 7 members sitting up there, and, obviously you can pass something 4-3. But, I think our board does a good job of, getting all on the same page and showing a united front on some of these important issues that are facing the school district.
Like, Waxahachie is not immune to this, and no school is immune to this in Ellis County. And now we're kind of going into the issues. Teacher loss. There is a lot of teachers that are leaving the profession altogether, and they cite anything from pay to support to discipline. There's all kinds of things they cite. Yeah. As a board member, obviously, you'll be talking with Dr. Hollingsworth about these things. Right. What would you like to do if you were one man board? What would you like to do to retain teachers?
I think obviously money talks. Pay is pay. But I think the support is one of the biggest things. A lot of our teachers, everything I'm hearing is they're exhausted. But the most important thing, they don't feel like they're being heard. And so when it comes to, like I said, maybe some of these hirings, principals or whatever, they're not being told, or, they're giving, a recommendation of, oh, well, we like person A, but then person B gets hired. Well, who listened to the teachers, and who, so I think the support is a big thing. And, I think our teachers aren't told enough how good of a job that they do, and that they are valued. And so, I think that's part of it. But I think, giving them the support and making sure that our administration is listening to them and, what they need and what they're wanting.
Yeah. And student progress, achievements and gaps in different, different socioeconomical conditions. There's disparities there. Yeah. That said, as a board member, what can you do? Because, like, for instance, Waxahachie ISD was working with that Amplify curriculum. And the board members do mess with curriculum. They do that. That's what they do. So as a board member, what would you do to ensure that we have the right curriculum to achieve the best for the students of WISD?
Well, that hits a soft spot for me. And I think I've talked to you about before my history with having learning disability, and every kid learns different, and there's not a blanket program or textbook or something that can teach our kids. If a teacher teaches our kids,
Hmm.
but every kid learns different, and so we need to make sure that we are giving all the kids, every kid, an opportunity to learn the way that they learn. And I know that sometimes if you're a teacher and you've got 46 kids in a class, or whatever it is, that's hard to do, and it's especially hard to do if you're having to teach a certain curriculum that gives you a script. And so I think that you know kind of making sure that we're providing our teachers the resources and the tools to teach these kids the proper way that they learn, and that's different. And we put a lot of trust in our teachers with our kids every day, and teachers are phenomenal, and I think it goes a long way to listen to the kid and
Right.
do what's best for them.
Well, since you mentioned it and touched on it, I'll go ahead and ask you this before I start moving into money issues. Um, how important is special education to you? I mean, as a dad of an autistic child, man, I have a love for special needs kids. I know that there's different names for them now, but
Yeah.
my heart is in the right place, even if my vocabulary is ancient.
Yes, thank you.
Um, that said, what will you do? Because they usually get the less recognition, and then a lot of parents have to bring in special education advocates to get their services for their kids. I mean, what are your thoughts on special education? What would you like to see as a board member?
you know, Special education is something special to me. That's something that I experienced as a child, as I mentioned a little bit ago. I went to Waxahachie schools up until high school. In my 8th grade year, when I was getting ready to go into high school, we were doing your calendar and setting your schedule for high school, and was with my parents and basically was told by the counselor at the high school, well, Ryan received certain accommodations due to his learning differences. And so, but if y'all want to continue these same accommodations, Ryan's going to have to be considered, like you said, there's all sorts of terms, but, be considered special needs. And, that will limit what he can take and all sorts of things. And so, my parents made a very hard decision to take me out of Waxahachie and send me to a school in Dallas that specializes with children with learning disabilities. And, that was crushing on me because my mom graduated from Waxahachie, my 2 sisters graduated from Waxahachie. I was ready to graduate from Waxahachie with all my friends I grew up with, and wasn't able to. But my parents, being my advocates, made probably the best decision. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for what they did. And I think parents are the biggest advocates for their kids, and our administration and teachers need to listen to parents. And I think it goes a long way. I've heard stories of teachers in our district that have gone to parents and said, well, we think your kid has learning disability. That stuff used not to ever happen. And so now catching things early, I think, is a key. But our
Mm-hmm.
district needs to be able to handle every kid, and we need to have the resources to provide for every kid, no matter how they learn. And so it's very important to me to make sure that we have those resources in place.
Will you fight to make sure they're recognized appropriately, special needs
Absolutely.
kids?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately it's one of those, that subject is one of those things where there's always a funding issue. There's a lot of mandates and not, a lot of funding. And I learned all these mandates and I had to learn them in order to advocate for my child. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into special education that's unfunded, and it makes for some serious difficulties trying to meet all those accommodations. But
Yeah.
as far as budgets and taxes are concerned, for those of you that don't know, the biggest part of your tax bill when you get your mortgage is the school district. That's why it's important that the who's running your school board, because not only do they educate your children, but they directly affect you paying your mortgage. So I want your thoughts on taxes, and then I'll kind of move into budget because there's several things going on with the budget, but just in general, how will you approach taxes every year?
So I think Waxahachie we're lucky, and a lot of people don't go around banging this on their chest, but WIC has one of the lowest tax rates in the Metroplex for schools, and so I think keeping the funding burden off the property owners and taxpayers is important. The way the funding is done, it's split with the maintenance and operation, and then the INS side of funding, and so it it's important that we keep things low, and that we try to not burden taxpayers any more than they're already burdened.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean there's a lot of people that say, hey, I can't even afford to stay in this beautiful place where I've been my whole life because I can't afford the property tax. So there's a lot that goes, and I know that it's not just the school. There's so many things that go into the property tax in Texas, but
the schools that you are
the
correct,
the largest. So the budget. So I was told that there is a deficit that WISD is running in. I haven't been able to get much more info, but I plan on talking with Dr. Hollingsworth further on budgets once we get a little more into it. So what are your thoughts on, because if you get elected this time, you'll be sitting on the budget, and even though you don't get to work on it, you're going to be voting. If this shortfall entails cuts, what are you okay with? What are you not okay with? And how will you approach the budget every year going forward?
Well, I think we have to be good stewards of the tax dollars, and we have to make sure that we're funding everything appropriately, and not maybe putting money in areas and programs that shouldn't be funded. A lot of school districts are running into deficits because ESSER funds are running out, and so ESSER funds have stopped coming into schools, and so you have a lot of school districts like WISD who started programs with those extra funds, and some of those programs may have been just intended to last as long as ESSER funds lasted. I'm not sure, but I think that there's been a lot of things like that have put a lot of these school districts in a bind. I attended the board workshop that they had before their meeting. It was open to the public. It was in their last meeting back in March. And there is a deficit. WISD is fortunate that the deficit is not bigger. We have one. It seems like we have one of the smaller deficits out of school districts around, and so that goes to show our board has been doing a wise job spending and maintaining our fund balance. And so I think that's going to be one of the biggest questions for the next school board member is are you willing to touch the fund balance to get out of the deficit? And that's something that I think we've got to be very, very, very careful in doing. Waxahachie's worked so hard to build up the fund balance and to get it to where it is, and our school district's a lot healthier and a lot better place than most school districts. And so I think we need to make sure we maintain our fund balance and really look at certain programs that were maybe created under the ESSER funds to see if they're still really needed, so that we can make up that deficit.
That would be the kind of the peripherals is what you'd like to, if there has to be cuts, would you like it to be around?
There has to be, but there's certain things you can't cut, and special education's one.
Yeah, let's not do that.
And as you said, that's an area that people commonly first go to. But I think that's not an option. Yeah. And just like I said, I don't think touching the fund balance should be an option either.
Excellent. They did pass a bond, and you mentioned it earlier. There was a bond passed. The citizens of Waxahachie trusted the district to build these new schools and do the things that bond was supposed to do. There's a lot of, with all these building projects, there's a lot that goes into these building projects. Sometimes they go overrun. There's these schools that are going to come up. There's just so much that's going to be happening in the next 5 years or 3 years in this district because of that bond and people coming and going, etc. So what are your thoughts on going forward, and maybe watching these as a board member, making sure that these things don't go, because a lot of the building projects around Ellis County have been over budget.
Right.
What kind of, because you're in business, what would you say to that if you were elected? What would you like to see going forward on these building projects?
Well, I think the most important thing is making sure, and I said this earlier, that they're on budget and that they're on time. And I think the district is doing a good job of keeping the board informed of where each of the current construction projects are, and then where the design phase is in these other projects. And I think making sure that we follow the bond and follow what the citizens passed and what they were told was going to happen. I think is a large part. But I think making sure that these projects stay on budget is even more important, because once that bond money runs out, there's no more money, and we can't be halfway through a new high school and not having more money. And so,
Yeah.
we've got to make sure that we're using that money appropriately, and that bond money is being used exactly for what the voters passed.
Right. Now, switching gears, what are your thoughts on the use of technology in schools? There was some parents talk about the overuse of tablets and stuff like that. What is your thoughts on that?
So I think technology in schools has a proper place. But I also think our kids aren't necessarily, especially our young kids, um, they're not going to learn the core skills that they need on a tablet. There's things that you're taught that technology can't teach you.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a balance, and I think limiting technology, especially at the elementary level, is highly important, because the students need to be able to develop these reasoning and cognitive skills that you simply can't learn through technology. And there's a time, as I said, there's a time and place for technology, but I think sticking with the good old book, pen and paper, is the best way to learn, especially at a young age. And so I think limiting technology and using it when it's appropriate, it is kind of the key. And that's a balance that we're trusting our teachers with, is to know when is the right time, or what are the right things to use technology for and what are not. And we have a lot of veteran teachers, and I trust a lot of their feedback on how that's going, and what's right for the kids. And like I said earlier too, every kid learns different. And so there may be a kid that can learn something better through a tablet than on pen and paper. But at the end of the day, pen and paper is the best way for everyone to learn.
Population's changing. There's a lot of new people coming in. The people are looking a little different. I mean, the Hispanic population is growing. The school is getting more diverse. As a board member, what will you do to kind of foster that and make sure that there is a diverse and highly qualified, because that's number one, but a diverse staff to meet these needs of these kids?
I think that hiring the best person for the job is the main thing, and making sure that you are hiring a staff that matches the community that we're in. And it's important that our administration, our board, and our teachers, that we're teaching the values and the principles of our community. And I think it's important to hire um, staff and administration on that they are going to uphold what the people of the community would like. And I think making sure that everyone is represented, and everyone has a voice. And
No. Now, it's you know but I got two more questions before I shut up and give you the mic to speak directly to people of Waxahachie. But one of them is CTE, because right now you have the president talking about forgiving student loans, and you have a student loan debt is one of the major debts in the entire country, and part of that is because the education system has been pushed to, you go to school and then you go to college. Now, I don't have anything against college, but there's this thing called the trades that, don't require that amount of investment for return. And Waxahachie is actually doing quite a darn good job about fostering that CTE environment.
yeah,
If you're elected to the board, will you support Dr. Hollingsworth in that? And what are your thoughts on CTE?
Absolutely. I mean, CTE is one of the most important things that our school district's doing. It's crazy that a kid, not everyone's made to go to college, not everyone's built for college, and so there's opportunities out there that aren't college, and
Mhm.
CTE gives students a taste of those opportunities in high school. And I think partnerships with TSTC and Navero and some of those things can even further our our CTE program, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at. But CTE is very important, and it is hands-on learning experience for our kids, and it's teaching them life skills. And
Yeah.
I'm 100% supporting Dr. Hollingsworth and the administration and continuing CTE. And I know in the designing of the new high school, currently that's one of the things that they mentioned at the board meeting last night was that they're redesigning some of the CTE wing and kind of making sure that it meets the needs for WISD to keep CTE one of the top priorities.
I love that. I love that, and I can't wait to have the superintendent on to kind of speak about how we're doing with that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is school safety. So, in Austin, they passed the laws that every campus will have an officer, and so with today's environment and the sheer evil that is out there with these school shootings and these horrible things they've done to these kids, nobody's immune, and people have found that out. Nobody is immune. It could happen anywhere. There are different technologies. There are FBI workshops for mass casualty, mass shooting, those kind of drills. There was a technology that I recently saw on the news that it doesn't require like major infrastructure. It could actually go into your camera system. It could go in using your current system, and it uses AI to detect if there's a weapon brought anywhere near that school. And then you can alert and you can do that kind of stuff. But that's just technology. As a board member, will you be looking into different things that the school can do to keep those kids safe?
Oh, absolutely. The safety of our kids is of utmost importance. As a parent, you trust every day when you drop your kid off at school or you send them to the bus stop that they're going to come home from school in the bus stop. And you don't want to have to think about the in between. But as you said, unfortunately, there is evil in our world and we're not immune to it. And so I think one of the biggest things is looking at all the tools and all the, everything that we can be doing to make sure that if evil does strike, that we're ready. And I think, doing drills and preparedness and always reviewing our emergency policies are imperative to make sure that we keep our kids safe. Because at the end of the day, you know, we as parents in our community, we expect that our kids will be safe at school, and our administration and board needs to do all that they can to make sure that that can happen. And if something does unfortunate occur, that the response is in place to minimize anything that happened.
Yep. Well, Ryan, this is the part where I shut up and let you speak directly to the voters. And I love this because this is the part where you talk to them. So I'm going to go ahead and tune out and go ahead and talk to them.
Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Pitts. I'm running for WISD Place 4. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up here in Waxahachie. Waxahachie means a great deal to me. I have two young children that will be attending WISD. My oldest daughter, who's 5, will be starting in the fall. And I have a 2-year-old that will be 3 this summer, and he's not far behind my daughter. But making sure that our community has the best schools that can educate our children is one of the most important things to me. I work in this community, I own businesses in this community, and keeping Waxahachie strong starts at our schools. And having board members that understand and know the community, are invested in the community, is extremely important. And I wouldn't be running if I did not believe that I could sit on that board and make a difference, all while promoting the values and principles of Waxahachie. I'd appreciate your vote. Early voting starts April 22nd. Election day is May 4th. I'd love your vote. Ryan Pitts, WISD Place 4.
And there you have it, folks. I've had both candidates on there, so you guys can check them out and see their positions and make decisions in an unbiased way from me. Hitting the like button helps me out a lot. So I hope that you guys, if you enjoyed my show or any of my content, please hit the like button. It helps with the algorithms and it helps the show spread. So I appreciate your support as a community for that. But
and please support DV, please. we need some more of this transparency and making sure that candidates that they have a place for their platform, but that also that our leaders in the community are held accountable. And so I thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that. So Ryan has a website, and he's on Facebook and other things, but he has a website if you want to know more about him. And this is the website, and you could hit about, and it's gonna go into the issues and Waxahachie roots and his beautiful family. By the way, you're a blessed, sir. Your family's beautiful. But if you want to know more about Ryan, there you are. You can go to that site, and I did scroll the website address down in the bottom. Thank you so much again for coming on again. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and good luck in your race.
Thank you, DV. I appreciate it.
Can you stick around real quick after?
Yeah.
Thank you.